What we just did here was to go ahead and create a Compute Engine VM just for the purposes of running a few scripts. This is hugely wasteful. You don't actually have to do that. And let me show you something really cool. If you go to the GCP console, you see this little icon here that says Activate Google Cloud Shell. So go ahead and click on that. And what you get is something called Cloud Shell. And Cloud Shell is a micro VM. It's a really small, tiny VM, but it's usually enough for our purposes if all we want to do is to go ahead and try out a few things, run a few scripts, copy a few files over from one location to another. So here we are in Cloud Shell, and I can essentially go ahead and do pretty much the same kinds of things that I did on the Compute Engine VM, except that Cloud Shell is meant for developers. So many of the things that we actually had to go install on the Compute Engine VM, we don't need to do that here. So for example, Git, already there. So if I want to go ahead and get Git, I would just say git clone and go ahead and clone our repository. And there we go. We now have all of the code that we needed to have, and we could go ahead and do much of our lab that we did in Compute Engine. We could just go ahead and do it in Cloud Shell. Now, the thing about Cloud Shell is that it's a very ephemeral VM. If you're not using it, usually in under an hour, it gets recycled. But then you can always go ahead and start another Cloud Shell. You can get another tab in the Cloud Shell. This is still the same VM, but you now have 2 tabs in it. And you can run other commands in this tab. So we will be using Cloud Shell as a way to do things like starting data lab. It's something that we're going to do in the next lab.